Hi, Jeff Rhodes here again, talking about Microsoft 365 and Power Automate mainly today, based on my book, Creating Business Applications with Microsoft 365. So, still working on this topic. I wanted to thank Naveed, who's one of users here, has been giving me some great comments, and you might have watched my last video where we added manager notifications to our SharePoint list, where we were going through and checking a status, and then originally just sending each person a reminder email, and then we added the managers, and that helped. But Naveed put out a really good point where he got some resistance, where here it is. Yeah, so it says what they didn't like was having a separate email. So if they had like 10 people on the team that weren't completed on the stats, they got 10 emails, and they like to have one email that does everybody. And I pointed to a previous video that I'd done on that, which was complicated on its own, but he gave a little more context. But I thought it'd be easier, or at least better, to go ahead and just kind of build the solution. So that's what we're going to do today. Unfortunately, it is a bit involved, so this will take a little while. So feel free to bail now if you're not interested, but if you want to see it, I hope you'll find it useful. So, and what I did to start with is I went ahead and created a brand new list, because the other one wasn't really optimized for this kind of, two levels of manager and so forth. So it's kind of similar to the previous one. I got rid of the training name, I just called it task here, so we had it. But I'm not filtering on it. I'm just grabbing all the tasks. I got employee first name, last name, email. Just make clear it's employees. Then I've got completion status, which is a choice column. I've got just one date notified. So no matter who it sends it to, I'm just updating this list. And then I've got level 1 manager. Oh, and by the way, where'd my completion? So in the end, I'm not sending to this medium one. So Sammy Hagar doesn't get anything. We'll check. But what I'm checking for anything that's incomplete here. And then I've got level 1 managers. And so what I'm expecting is, first I'll send 4 individual emails. Then I'm going to send Keith Richards is the level 1 manager. And so I'm expecting to send 1 email to Keith for these 2 people, and then another email to Pete Townsend, my English bands here, if you know they are, and saying that these 2 people, so Bonnie Raitt and Dave Grohl goes with Pete Townsend, Sean Mullins and Ed Rollins go with Keith Richards. And then we'll mark this level 1 manager notified as true, and then we got level 2 one. So to test it, I just made Mick Jagger, even though I'm crossing over bands here, made him the level 2 manager of everybody, and sending it all to one of my email addresses. We'll check this box, and then we'll put notes in as we go along. So let's do it. So what I've done so far is I save the previous flow, and I'm just going to need to update it. It's going to be quite a bit updating, but at least we don't have to repeat all the initial variables. And I've got another copy in my other machine, so if you see me looking away, that's why, because it is a little bit involved. I did find, if you haven't switched to this new interface, I do like it quite a bit. And in particular, we can copy and paste actions now, which is pretty darn slick. So I'm going to go ahead and do variables, because I need to add some more here at the front. So I'm going to initialize, and I'm going to make a var send email enum and make it string, because I've got some different ones, and I'm just going to initialize that to employee, because before, you'll see I have a var send email and a var send manager email, and now I got a 1 to level 1 versus level 2 manager. So it gets too many variables that can be contradictory. So I'm just going to make an enum And so because of that, I don't need this guy. So I'll delete that. Today ticks, we talked about in the previous video. var ticks last notified is the same. Var last notification date. Var days between ticks. And I don't need this one. But I do need a couple more. So if you saw my previous email about looping through, the idea is that you swap when you change. So in this case, when the manager changes, that's when I'm going to send an email at that point, because I could have 1,000 or 10,000 records. So I got to do it. I can't just, wait till the end. I got to do it as I get to them. So I'm going to add an action variable. One thing I don't really like is it would seem like the most, when you start using initialize a lot, it should show up in that list, but that's okay. So I'm going to call this var old manager email. Copy that, make sure it's a string. I've talked about I like to put those in there to document so you don't have to go inside to see what the variable name is. And then there's a new variable manager email. So change that to new. Copy that for documentation. Oh yeah, I've got a few more than I needed on the way, so let's just start piling. By the way, we're doing all these up front because you can't initialize these variables inside of a loop, so that's why we have to initialize them all outside. And most of the rest of these are used for sending emails and stuff, so we're going to do our email address. You can probably copy and paste these, but that's all right. Call it var email subject. I'd actually like to see them default to string. I do find I use strings a lot more than any other ones. I don't use booleans that often, so if it were me, I'd default to that. But if anybody from Microsoft's listening, and this is var email body. Oops, I spell it right. It's string. And then I got one more. I like to personalize the email, so I'm going to be trying to figure out which manager it is. So I'm going to want to have the manager's first name. So say var manager first name. There we go. So I think we got them all. So now we go to the get items, but I'm on the same site, but I've got a different list. So now I've got manager notifications, and I had filter query, so I don't have title anymore, and it turns out this other one is completion status. Let me show you again because it is important. Let's make sure you see how to get the exact name to use inside there. So you want to go into list settings, go in there. That's one reason I don't typically put spaces in, because it makes this part a little more difficult. But I get that right up there in the address line after it says field equals. So this will be completion status, and it still is incomplete. But very, very important here, I need to sort this because it's only going to work if I sort by the level 1 and then the level 2 manager. So again, we'll go back in here just to be sure. And I want to do it by, I don't want to do it by first name because I could have 3 Johns or whatever. So I need it to be level 1 email, the manager email. It should be unique. And so I just put the column name, and then I had to look it up, but you put the comma and then your next level. So it will sort it first by level 1 manager and then by level 2 manager. And it defaults to ascending. It really doesn't matter in this case. We just need to make sure it's sorted. But that's real important there. And then I got to be sure I change everything as I go along because I was referring to that other list. So I got some invalid stuff in here. So here's one that's invalid because I'm looping through. So I have to pick the right one. It looked the same, but I want to make sure I get the right one. Then I'm going to set last notification date, but I got to make sure I get the new one in there. So I'll look the date last notified. So that's what I'm doing there. And then what I'm doing here is I got to say, okay, I don't use this anymore because I remember I don't have this var send email at all. But the equivalent is that enum, because basically if the notification's blank, notification date's blank, then I go ahead and send it to the employee. So I go ahead and set this to employee just to be sure. I don't really use it that much, but and I can just say var send email enum true. And I got a bunch more of these. So I can set variable. And I want the var email address. And partially what I'm doing here is just to be consistent that when I send the email, I always use it from the variable. So I could say it's a little inefficient since I'm just going to send email, but I like to just be consistent. And so this one's going to be the employee email. There we go. And got more of these. All right, so we're doing, we need to set another variable. Email subject. And that's for the employee. So we'll say your task. And then we have the name of the task, Cobra it was, but we can put that in. Is, and we'll go ahead and read in the status. Should be incomplete for everybody, but just in case we change that, that will work. Oh, and I forgot to set the thing, so we'll say set. And these need to be unique, which is why I'm putting employee on there. And got one more. We'll have set the body. I'll put up here. There we go. And this one, we'll go ahead and put some HTML in here. It's kind of interesting. Some of the stuff, the HTML works and some of it doesn't, but we'll say dear employee first name. I'll do some tags here because it works better in here. Sometimes if you do the just hard returns, it doesn't work by the time you get the email. So status for task, just kind of repeat. I don't think I put a quote in there. Is completion status, please finish it as soon as possible. Thanks, management. All right, and then now we can go ahead and send email. One thing I don't particularly like is it doesn't alphabetize these all that well. So you got to kind of look for them. So they're sending email. Oh, that wasn't what I wanted. Maybe I did this wrong. Let's try it again. Oh, I think I may have messed this up. Let me delete that. I didn't recognize that create a connection, so. Yeah, I think I picked the wrong one the last time. Maybe not, we'll see. Yeah, that's better. So I'll say send an email, employee. And we'll just use all our variables and stuff. So we use the var email address, var email subject, and then we'll put the body in here. And we don't have any of the other things. Okay, so that one was not too bad, but we got a little bit more to do still. So let's move this over, get on the next things over. So we got var tick/notify, but we got to check and see, yeah, because we had a different item there. So we'll just get rid of that because that was from our other list. So what I do is come over here, and I can either use the list or I can use the var date, var last notification date, because I just sent that. So we'll go ahead and use that. That's the same because I just set it from the variable. So we'll say update that. And then the var days between ticks, let's make sure that's still okay. Yeah, we're using variables A. Today ticks last notified, which we just set. So that should be okay. Then I need another variable I need to set. And this one's the email subject. Again, and this where it gets kind of complicated is when you're looping through, just got to figure out the right place to set some of these variables, So I'll say set var email subject managers. And I don't have to use in particular. I'm just going to call it late tasks notification. So that's what the email subject will say, because it could be for multiple people, so we don't put anyone particular in there. And then I need some more logic, because turns out that what we have to do is we have to set the stuff here so that if we send the email later, because we're going to loop, and when we've changed managers, then we have like appended all these things, and we got to send it. We got to be all kind of update as we go along. We got to update each record, saying that it's ready to go. So we got to basically get some stuff set right then. So it'll make a little more sense when I put it in. So we're going to do a control and a condition. And it's real important to name these, because it's hard enough to figure out without having to go into each condition and see what it does. So we're going to see check if level 1 manager notified. So we're checking that Boolean thing. So we're going to come in here, see more, and we got a true false. Level 1 manager notified. So if that's equal to true, well, what do? Well, we got some variables to set so that we're ready to go. So we got to set the variable. The first one is our enum we're going to use. So that's going to be level 1 manager. So it doesn't matter what we use as long as we're consistent while we're doing that. So we're going to say set var send email enum to level 1 manager. Oh, and actually I have these backwards because I checked if it's true. Sorry. So this should be level 2 manager, because if it's already checked, then I'm ready to go up to level 2 because I go to level 1 first. And this is a good example. I'll show you that new one where you can copy the action and we can paste it over here. So it doesn't copy the title, but this will be level 1 manager. So set var send email enum to level 1 manager. There we go. And then we're going to might as well set the email that we're going to send it to. So we'll go variable again. And this will be the var new manager email. And that's going to be level 2 manager email. Again, we're in the case where we've checked that box. So we've already sent it to level 1, so we're sending it to level 2. There we go. And we need the kind of the inverse of that. Whoops. Wanted to paste. Set var new manager email to level 1 manager. Told you be a little involved. We're just getting started, but we're getting there, making good progress. All right. So that one's ready to go. So when it loops through, we'll be good to go. Then we come in and say, okay, is the days between ticks greater than 7? So that's like we had it in the previous video. So that's good. But now inside the true, so if we're let's do the false one first. So the only thing we have to do here, we can just change this. This is the var send email enum, and we've got one that we're just using called not sent. So we're just not. If it hasn't been 7 days, we don't do anything. So we'll just say email enum to not sent. So that part's a little easy, pretty much what we did before. But in here, we need another set of conditions now. So we're going to say control condition again. And we're going to say check if manager changed. So this is where it gets a little hard on your head a little bit, but take my word for it, just try it out, and then you'll get it. So if the old manager email is not equal to the new manager email, then it's time to send. So let's go back to the list for a minute because it's easier if we do that. So effectively what we're doing is we're sorting by manager email. Level 1 manager email. So these three will go together, and we're excluding the ones that are completed. So we'll get these two together, Sean and Ed. And so we'll come through and it'll go, okay, we'll get this one, and then it skips this one because it wasn't there, and then it switches emails here. And so at that point, we've already ready to send the email to the first manager, Keith Richards, with these two in there. So that's effectively what we're doing. So what we got to do is get this, so that's how we know they're not equal anymore. And then we'll check in a minute if it's blank. If this first one was blank, then we won't do anything either, because that means, it's basically the first time through is what that will mean. Okay, so we're check if manager changes. So if it's true, actually let's do the false one first, because that one's, so if it hasn't changed, so if we go from Sean to Ed and it's the same one, before we leave, the first time through it won't have changed either. So because anyway, we've got to log Sean stuff before we get over to Ed and stuff. So let's go over there. So check if manager change. If it's false, we're going to append. So go to the variable. Append to a string variable. And what we're going to do is that var email body. And you'll see later where we put it in the first time. So this is basically the second time around. So we're going to do those tags. And then we'll say task. Notice that we're not doing your task because we're sending to the manager. So we'll say task for, now we got to say the person's name. Employee first name, space, employee last name is, I don't have the value right now, so I'm going to find is completion status, period. And we'll put a couple more of these tags in. We'll just copy those, or another tag. Because the idea is we're going to just loop in. If it's got 100 people, it's going to put 100 lines of these in there. So that'll all do the second time around. The first time around, it'll actually, because this one is Keith Richards and the old manager's blank. So you'll actually get inside the true here. So because of that, we got to check for that. So we're going to come in here, control condition, and we're going to say check if old manager email is blank, is not blank. So we'll say is not equal to, and then we just leave it blank there. There we go. And then we don't do anything on the false. If it's true, then we're kind of like we were before, going to set some variables. We're going to set the email address. And it's going to be the old manager email. That's how we're storing that email. Because we don't want it to be the new one. Because basically the new one, think this happens, basically this is happening when we get to Bonnie Raitt. So the new manager email is this Jeff Rhodes 87, but it goes with Pete Townsend. So who we want to send it is the previous manager, which was Keith Richards. And it will already have had that data already put in there. So we'll say set var email address to var old manager email. And then we can go ahead and send them the email. So let's go ahead and copy that one from where we were before. So we'll copy that over. And we'll say send an email to manager. This will be var email address, var email. So we got the body is a little bit different. So we need to say dear manager first name. You've got to kind of play with the hard returns there. So we'll put the var email body. But remember that body doesn't have the signature in there of thanks management. So we'll put that in ourselves. Here we go. So made it through that gauntlet. So that comes down. And then notice that we didn't do any, we only sent it to the old one if it's blank. And then now we're ready to do the new one. But the first time through, we're just going to be loading it with the first record. So we got more variables here. So one way to think about it is that this one is the first time through, it's coming here, and then we're appending. Remember this guy over here, we're appending if the second time through. So this is where we're going to set it. So we're setting the email body. We're not appending to it, we're setting it. Actually, I'll see if I can copy it from my other examples. You don't have to watch me type it again. Oh, and it didn't like this last bit, so I guess we'll do it again. That's all right. Gives me all my things. So these are your personnel that are await on task. And then I'll say task is task for employee first name space employee last name. Looks like there's an extra space there. Is, and I'll put the status in. There we go. And we'll say set var email body, and I have to just put the number 2 there because I already set it for the employee. But now it's there basically the first time around, if you will. And then I got to be ready. Now, since I've taken care of, if the var old manager email is all set up, I need to now set the var old manager email so that when it loops around, it's still there. It's where it gets a little complicated, but just kind of think it through. So we got var old manager email is equal to var new manager email. Okay, so we're kind of starting our loop over, if you will. So I'll set var old manager email, var new manager email. All right. So that covers that whole area. We don't need this thing anymore, so we'll just delete it. Delete it. Actually, it's easier if we just delete all this. So let's just delete all of this. There we go. So many levels, it's a little hard to keep track here. So let me just come down here. So we did. Sometimes it can be nice if we collapse this a little. Whoops. There we go. All right, so what we need to do after that is we've got one more case now. So if we think about it, let's go back to our list again. So we're going to get these two. It's going to get to Bonnie Raitt. At that time, it's going to send the one to Keith Richards. And then now we go Bonnie Raitt, we go to Dave Grohl, we've looped. But now we're done with our loop. And what have we missed? We actually didn't send the final email. We needed to send it over to Pete Townsend here. So we got to do that outside our loop. So we have one more set of thing to do. So we want to say control. And we'll name this first. We'll say check if remaining email to be sent, like that. So first thing we're going to do is check if var old email is not equal to blank. Okay. And then we'll come in. False, we won't do anything, but true, it's going to be very similar to what we did above. So we'll just actually copy this. Where did my one go? I guess I put it inside here. Oops, I need to collapse it there. Yeah, so I need this guy. So I'll copy that. So var email address is var old manager email, so let's say set var email address to var old manager email 2. And I'm going to want to come up and grab this Outlook one. Here we go. Basically the same, and I'll just say send an email to manager 2. All right. I think we're done. We'll see. Chances are, with all that copying and pasting and stuff, that we missed some logic. But let's see first if it gives us a error message when we're saving. If it does, that means we had doing something inside the loop. Well, that was probably good. So let's go ahead and try it. So we'll manually test it inside here. Again, if it works correctly, I'm expecting to get 4 emails. So I better launch Outlook because I don't have it open right now. So I'll launch it on my other monitor. All right, so let's go look at what it did here. All right, so what we'd expect is it went in and it sent, remember I said to go down that left panel. So number 1 did it. Number 2, just looking at these over there. Number 3, number 4. So that's good. Let's see if let me check my email. Let's go look at this and let's refresh. Don't have it yet. Oh, and what I didn't do is I didn't add my updates to my notes or my date last notified. So I did actually get the email. Let me bring it over. There we go. Dear Dave, the task for Cobra is incomplete. Thanks, management. And I got 1 Bonnie, Ed, Sean, and Dave. So I actually got that fine, but I didn't. It's going to do forever because I didn't do the date notified. So I missed that somewhere. Let me go look at my example. See, but so far so good. So that's all right. Oh, yeah, I see where I just forgot it. So let's go over here and edit. So I needed to write that to SharePoint. There we go. So we need SharePoint. And I need to update item. Gotta look for this, so hopefully there it is, update item. My samples. And manager notifications. My unique identifier is the ID. I don't want to change these. So it defaults with all the ones that are non. So let's just do it that way. But I do need to put to update the date last notified. So we'll do a function here. We'll just say UTC now, like that. And then I need to update the notes. So I want to put the previous notes in, just in case there's something there. Press return, and then I can say employee notified on, and then I can do my function. And I can do UTC now again, but I can actually do a format string. So I'll do day, year, like that. I'll put a period on the end. There we go. And I'll say update item employee. There we go. I'm going to copy this one because I'm going to be using it shortly. Let me go look. Basically, every time I send an email, but there's some other times I need to update this. So I got to go look where I was doing that. Oh, right. So there was a whole set of logic that I didn't put in over here, so let me go find it. Yeah, so I did. Yeah, I had one more thing after this. Check level, let's see. So I wanted to come right here. Oh, actually, let me see if I can paste the action. There we go. Oh, actually, let me delete it. Got premature. I got to do a little bit of logic here because I have to know if I'm level 1 or level 2 because I got to update the right thing. So let me do a condition. So I kind of remember the last one, but so I'll just change this a little bit. Check if level 1 manager. So I checked that enum. Remember we were doing that enum. And if it's equal to level 1 manager, then I'll come over and paste an action. So that'll be update item level 1 manager. So we'll do that one. The date last notified will still be that, but we want to say level 1 notified is yes. So that's how we update that column. And then we'll say, instead of employee notified, we'll say level 1 manager notified. So that's nice. Oops. Then let's copy that and paste it over here. And we'll say level 2 manager. So this will be very similar. Use the same ID, but we're going to take that one out. But we're going to say level 2 manager notified is yes, and then just change this to level 2 manager. And then we had one more. Oh, we got to, while we're here, this is how we know whose first name is where we set that manager first name. So we're going to go variable. And we'll say var manager first name is level 1 manager first name. Copied it weirdly there, but go and set var manager first name. We'll say level 1, and we'll copy this. This will be level 2 manager first name. Set var manager first name to level 2. All right, let's see if we got that. Like I said, it is kind of exceedingly complicated. So we're going to run this to really test this. Oh, actually, we can just run it again because since I didn't set the date last notified, it should actually do it exactly how we planned it the first time. So what we're expecting is that it will send the emails, but also it'll update the SharePoint list. There we go. refresh that, see if it starts writing that date notified for us. Oh yeah, there we go. So it wrote the 4 that we expected. It should put the notes in, employee notified on 5/16. You saw the email already. I'll refresh, but let's now to test this for the rest. What we have to do is we have to come in and make it look like it was over a week ago. So I'm just going to change this to the 1st. We'll just copy all that. There we go, and I'll exit grid view. And I like to reload too, just make sure that it took. Yeah, so this is the 1st. By the way, here's a email. Your task was incomplete. Thanks, management. Notice it says Dear Ed, so that's the to the person itself. That's Ed Rollins. So let's run it again. And easiest just to edit it. And we'll test it. Whoops. I'm not sure what happened there. All right, looks like I kind of confused it a little bit. There we go. Now let's test it. Oh, it's like I switched to somehow I toggled the designer. Let me go back to the new designer for a second. I like that better now. All right, now we can test that. All right, we'll let this load. We'll go through it once it's ready, but what we're expecting here is for the dates to get updated again. I see I got one already in the chat, so let's see. There we go. Dear Keith, these are your personnel that are late. Task Cobra for Sean Mullins. Oh, it looks like I have a weird space there, so I guess that's something for me to look at, but that's all right. And let's reload this. It should have the new dates again. Yep, and level 1 notified, level 1 manager notified is checked, and now it says the level 1 manager has been sent. Let me send and receive. Some of my email addresses are slower than others. So we'll see if that second one came in. There it goes. Yeah, here we go. Dear Pete, went to my Gmail and then had to come over. Yeah, it looks like that one of those is the first one has a space in it. So we'll go fix that. So it's basically the first one has, I needed an extra space, but that has the right people. It says Dear Pete. So everything's good. Let's go ahead and change the date one more time. I know it's a long video, but might as well get it completed. So let's go ahead and change this back to the 1st so we can picture that it's time for another one to get sent. And what we're expecting now is one email that goes just to Pete Townsend. Or no, to Mick Jagger, who he said is the level 1 manager, Mick Jagger right there. And we'll refresh this to make sure it's took, yeah, all says the first. Let's see if we can find that problem with it running together. So it'll be in either the append or the initial one. So let's say, oh, and I never renamed that. That should have been append to var email body. And this one looks like it does have the space, so that one's okay. So it must be the one down here. Yeah, see right there, you can't really tell very well, but there's a little, needs to be a space. So that was the problem with that. So let's save it. And I won't really video's been so long, I won't go through the debugger, but if you have trouble, actually I'll go through it once on this next one just to be sure you see how to troubleshoot these, because they can be a bit ugly. So let's run it here, and rather than going and looking at it in SharePoint, let's look at it in the designer so that we can see how to troubleshoot this. So we just kind of wait for it to start getting the check marks and everything. All right, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Now I can move it. So what you want to do is you want to come up here and notice first you see 1 of 4, which you expect, and then look for the green check marks. So this one's coming through here. Check if level 1 notify. That's why you rename those, because you don't have to go look it up then. So we come through and say, yeah, now it's the level 2 manager, which is what we're expecting. So that's good. Check if more than 7 days. Yes. Check if the manager changed. Well, let's see which item. We're on number 1. So we check if the old manager is not blank. It actually came. There's no actions, but you can tell it didn't go down this one because it has the thing. So when it has the little, white lines there. So it went down here, and then it went down this check if level 1. So we updated. This is where we updated the level 2 item for the first one. So if we come over here, this is where, oh, we haven't refreshed it yet. Interesting that it didn't update the date yet either. So there we go. Yeah, this is where it checked that level 2 manager box. You see it says level 2 manager done there, but that's where it updated that and put the notes in, and it got the right first name. And then what we have to do to watch it, we have to come back and go to the second one, which is basically the same. And actually, because all of them, the level 2, it never changes because the level 2 manager was the same. So actually all of these will be the same every time. And then what we do is come through, we say check if the remaining email is to be sent. It came down here, and then there's actually the last the email that we sent. It has a bunch of stuff in it, but basically says it sent, and we can look inside of all the things that were in it. So let me refresh my screen, see if I can show that on the end, and we will finally be done. So it's a little bit involved. It took us an hour to go through it, and I had done most of the logic. So not for the faint of heart, but there's our final thing. Dear Mick, these are your personnel that are late. Notice that we got rid of the weird is. So it's got all 4 of them. And one consolidated email didn't get 4 different ones. So thank you for your time. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and keep those comments coming. Have a great day.